Hi, my name is Laura Bray, and I serve as the Pennsylvania State Personnel Development Grant Director, or SPDIG. Our current SPDIG is Middle School Success Path to Graduation. Today, I'm excited to be presenting with Dr. Amira Hill-Yancy, who is an educational consultant with the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network, or PaTTAN, and Dr. David Lee, who's a professor at Penn State University. Today, we will be sharing about our SPDIG's work with institutions of higher education, or IHEs, in the development of learning modules. The goal of P2G is to decrease dropout rates for students with emotional and behavior disorders. We're doing this through a focus on their attendance, behavior, and classroom performance. To do this, we draw from implementation science to partner with all 29 intermediate units across the state to work with 77 school districts. These 77 school districts each have a team of educators, including a school administrator and internal coach. As you can see, this is very much a systems level approach. We are working across the state with many administrators and school personnel and coaches. We are in year 4 of implementation, and next year we plan on bringing on an additional 10 school districts. Each school team is learning to implement an early warning system, or EWS system, to identify and attend to students' needs based upon their ABC data. The 3 interventions we're training on are Check and Connect, Strategic Instructional Model, and Transition Discoveries. As you can see here, we are working with over 200 intervention coaches, 300 educators who are implementing interventions, and over 500 school personnel who are currently trained in Check and Connect as mentors. We are finishing up, as I mentioned earlier, year 4 of implementation, and our outcome data is looking great. As you can see, at each level, P2G is having a positive impact on our outcomes. With this said, a key component of our work has been working with IHEs to seed and sustain critical components of P2G with pre- and in-service teachers. This work has been met with much enthusiasm. We often hear about the challenges that other SPDIGs encounter when working with IHEs. So to gain a better understanding of how we're able to foster collaborative work among 11 IHEs, I'm going to ask Amira and David a few questions that will help us shed light on what we've done and the key components and tips that have enabled this work to occur. So with no further delay, I'm going to begin to ask some of these questions. So to start with, Amira, going back to the beginning of this work, can you describe how the project approached IHEs about this effort?
Yes, thank you so much, Laura. I am happy to be here to share this information today. We've done some awesome work in Pennsylvania, and we really want to share our efforts so that they can be spread across the country. So when we initially decided to contact the Institutes of Higher Education, we reached out to every teacher education program that had a special education focus so that we could really reach those professors who are educating our pre-service teachers in special education, and they are getting those certificates. And we wanted to make sure that we offered the benefits, not only for the IHEs, but the benefits for the pre-service teachers. So we started with just letting folks know that if we were able to build whatever this resource looked like, it would be a resume building tool for pre-service teachers, but also giving that research to practice guidance that they would need once they enter classrooms. Now for IHEs, the partnership for them would allow opportunities to have enhanced coursework, as well as access to PaTTAN resources, our print shop, and any other resources that we needed to develop the materials, and also ultimately landing whatever resources on our PaTTAN website, as well as collaborating and networking opportunities amongst the IHEs. And then there was a small stipend that was offered. Now, we initially only thought that we would get about 6 IHE partners. We said we would have 2 in each region. So 2 in the Eastern region, 2 in the Central region, and 2 in the Western region. And we would do sort of a lottery to select who would participate. So I met with all of the 11 IHEs who had expressed interest and told them that we would be doing this lottery. And I got this really quiet response. And they were like, well, why can't we all participate? And I'm like, well, that would mean that you would get less funding than we initially proposed. And they were all okay with that. So I knew we had the right people at the table. If they were willing to take less funding to engage in this work, then I knew that there was excitement. And so from there, we sort of split up into 2 groups: the pre-service in-service group that would develop resources that would support pre-service and in-service teachers, and then the curriculum group that would develop resources that would support the teacher education program curriculum.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing that we were able to get 11 IHEs to the table and that they took less money for it. So what would you say those key ingredients? It doesn't seem like money is really the motivating factor, was it?
No, it definitely wasn't the money. I mean, I would defer to David, but from my perspective, it seemed like just a good work that would help children at the end of the day. And so we always kept the children as at the center and as the focus. And so I would believe that it was because these resources could reach so many people because of having them housed on our PaTTAN website, and that is accessed by people all over the world. So I think that that was a good selling point. But David, what would you add to that?
I agree with you, Amira. I think the opportunity for impact, I think, we have our classes that we teach, and we certainly impact the pre-service teachers that we're preparing, and then they're going to go out and work with K through 12 or pre-K through 12 students. And that's great impact, and that's awesome. But that's sort of, very sort of a narrow view of impact. And I think this was about thinking about what is needed across the Commonwealth and beyond, and having an opportunity, like you said, these materials will be up on the websites and be available to a lot of people. And we all got into this field to help people and to help kids. And what better way to be able to increase impact and to sort of join forces, learn from each other, and then move the materials out to the broader community.
Awesome. Yeah, that focus on impact is really, about our SPDIG and thinking about sustainability, and the impact that this will have for educators across the Commonwealth over time is just amazing. Amira was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the work, the roles and expectations of the IHEs and their involvement in this project, and how it kind of evolved over time. If you could kind of talk us through that for potentially other SPDIGs thinking about, what were the expectations for IHEs as they were coming to the table, and did it change?
Yeah, so I think at the onset, it was kind of like they had full autonomy. And I think that was like exciting, but then it presented some challenges because we didn't give them any focus. It was like, we're looking at early warning system data, we're considering students with emotional disturbance, and we want to provide resources that support teachers and teacher education programs to look at data in ways that's beneficial for the teachers and that support students at the end of the day. And so over time, kind of realized that we needed to provide a little bit more structure around it. And so they came up with this idea to develop modules. And I think a lot of what was successful was us just sort of guiding the work. It was like kind of guide on your side. Like we weren't really in the mix of their development, but we had these check-in points. So they divided the work up amongst themselves. And I have to say that having Dr. Lee and Dr. Farmer as true experts, and also Dr. Scala, So we had experts on the emotional disturbance intervention side, and Dr. Lee and Dr. Farmer. And then we also had Dr. Scala, who has been working in teacher education programs for a number of years. So they were in their wheelhouses, and they were able to kind of divide the work up amongst themselves based on their specialty areas. And then they developed the content based on the research that they've done and the work that they're currently doing. So it was really giving them the ability to move forward with what they do best, and then sort of coming in, having those check-in points and guiding it if things didn't seem to match what we were looking for. But again, because they really decided how they wanted to set everything up, it was just more so us giving a little more structure to how it would look on the website and how folks would access it. So things like, that language is really academic. Can we, change that to language that would be more friendly to just the layman? So little things like that to kind of support the work along the way. But for the most part, they had the autonomy, and they had the knowledge and the expertise amongst themselves to develop the content.
I would just add to that, Amira, that I think we really just developed a trust along the way, that you trusted us and let us do our thing, and we trusted you and your team so that when it came down to it, it was going to get polished up and kind of be sort of ready for prime time, so to speak. So I think that's a big part of it, is just that, each person, each team letting go and understanding that when you kind of send the content down to the next group, that they're going to take care of it and they're going to do a great job, and just in that trust. I thought that was one of the, in my take, is that one of the benefits that came out of this was just understanding that we're all on the same team, and having that and building that trust, I thought was really, really great.
Switching gears a little bit, we were talking about the impact and really thinking about, how does this work coming to it? How did it, and how do you see it supporting educators from across the Commonwealth and beyond?
So I'll just say that I see it as that supplemental resource for professors and teacher education programs. These modules that we've developed can be used in the classroom, right? And so they've been developed in a way that they don't interrupt, but they add to the instruction that's already provided by professors in their teacher education programs. But then in addition to that, for those teacher education programs who may not have modified their curriculum, those pre-service teachers can access those modules. Those in-service new teachers, or even teachers who have been in the field for a while and need a refresher, they all now have access to these materials that are self-paced. They can walk through the modules and get what they need when they need it. And so that on-demand resource support is essential. Folks don't always want to come to a PaTTAN training, perhaps, or they may not have time to access it in a more organized manner, but just being able to look at the topic of the module, go in and get what you need, take some notes, and have those essential elements of the modules kind of guide their practice. I see it really being extremely impactful and access for everyone. So anyone can go on the website at any point and see the materials. What were you thinking, Dr. Lee?
Yeah, so Amir, I was thinking, we had good discussions from the outset that this would be sort of an evidence-based, we were going to use evidence-based interventions, and that was going to be the foundation for everything we did. So that's sort of was the starting point. I think a lot of what you said rings true for me. The idea of this content being an overlay. I think when we go into, as university folks, I'll speak for myself here, we go into to work with schools or what have you, and it's almost like teachers are like, yeah, you're here just to kind of blow everything up and then try to replace everything. And that's really not what this project was about. As you said, it was about, what do you have going on in your school now? You've spent a lot of time and effort putting together supports, and this project really is about sort of acts as an overlay to fill in gaps in those current supports. So, and I think, Amir, you said it really well with it's in-time training or on-time training. I forget exactly what you said there, but it was, you can access the training on an as-needed basis. And I think that's sort of a key thing here, is that It's an overlay. It's not designed to replace everything that you're doing, but it's designed to give you key pieces of information on supports that's really going to help kids with emotional behavior disorders.
All so exciting. And this group has really accomplished a lot. And in a short amount of time, to, all the modules that are being created for both pre and in-service teachers, it's just amazing. Do you have any tips that you want to share about how you got this work done? I know we kind of covered some of them already, but are there any really key pieces that you feel like other SPDIGs might want to hear about in terms of, doing something that, now we look at it and it just might feel overwhelming for other SPDIGs kind of as they're starting this work. So how did you get it done? Where did you start at with it to get it moving?
I think having regular meetings and just creating a space for conversation and collaboration, it wasn't me dictating, but it was us just having those conversations to get where we needed to go. Reminders, right? Because we know that life happens and folks get busy. So kind reminders, being respectful to each other, just those basic human things that you would do when you're working with others, but treating these professionals as professionals and letting them know how valued they were at all times. I think I always tried to let them know how much I appreciated what they were doing every step in the process. When I noticed that something was completed and it was interesting and you could see where they were going with things, I celebrated that at every opportunity. So I think those small wins along the way, when we met those benchmarks, celebrated them, and just continued to move forward in that vein.
Yeah, I think, as an IHE representative, I really appreciated that, Amira, the way, you sort of brought us on board and we worked as a team. And I think one of the important things, when we look at how to make these types of situations work well, and you brought it up, it's respect on both sides. And we're coming from the problem at different angles, which is important. That's good. And so we're going to have slightly different solutions sometime, but, understanding as, you are, sort of representing Pennsylvania Department of Education and you're focused on one set of tasks. And, as IHE folks, we're set, kind of doing some other things. We're all on the same team and we need to respect each other, that just because the way you or I do it is a little different doesn't mean it's wrong or bad or anything like that. We just need to understand each other and have conversations. So I think one of the, ways we accomplished what we did, I thought, was through those conversations, those check-ins. And, Amira talked about, the check-ins. We've checked in every couple of weeks or every month, depending on what was going on. But the check-ins within our teams was super important. And just a little email notes that, sometimes it was every other day when we were kind of pushing a deadline, or every hour when we're pushing a deadline. But those little notes back and forth and getting to know teammates and sort of understanding how to leverage everybody's strengths was huge. I mean, some people are really better at organizational tasks and they were fine with organizing things, and others were better at content, and it all worked together. I always tell my students, not everybody can be the shortstop on the team. It would be a pretty bad team if everyone was going to be the shortstop. So you need to, everyone plays their role, does their thing. We work as a team. And sometimes that means kind of taking yourself and your ego and moving it to the back. And that's okay because the job gets done.
Those are awesome tips. And I just appreciate you sharing all of that. And I, thinking about the work and how it can lead, potentially to tricky situations sometimes, and just understanding, like you were saying, about respect, and also that everyone plays a part, and understanding that. And that is key. And that identifying what people are really good and best at, and allowing them to move forward with that. I also wanted to share, I know all the work was being done on a Google Drive system. So I guess that was also maybe in some ways it wasn't owned by one institution or one entity. It wasn't a department, it wasn't an IHC, but it was kind of a shared platform and space that kind of enabled everyone to contribute and collaborate and to feel like it was shared ownership. And I thought that was a neat way to kind of bring people together as well. David, I was wondering if you could share with us from the IHE perspective about, why did you join this work? And I know you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but is there anything else you'd like to share about that with us, and maybe why other IHEs would potentially be interested in joining work like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we talked about impact earlier, and I think that's the most important thing to me. I feel like, we get into this job or this profession for a variety of reasons, but I think most of us really want to help individuals with disabilities. So the impact or potential for impact is very high. I also, think about why universities or what their roles are. So I come from Penn State, and Penn State's a land grant institution, and sort of the goal of the land grant institutions are to make things better for the people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and beyond. And there's really no better way to do that than to join my colleagues from around the Commonwealth. We had a really super strong team of individuals, and that was also enticing to kind of work with colleagues and get their takes on things and learn from them, quite frankly. And hopefully they learned a little something from me as well. But I think if we just kind of lock away in our offices and then there's the ivory tower criticism that goes on. We're supposed to be out doing things. So that's why that was the selling point for doing this work. I thought it was great in terms of impact and collaboration as well.
Yeah, that collaborative element too, I think, forming this kind of professional network. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. I know we've talked about the working relationships that are kind of develop in this type of work. And it sounds, respect is key kind of to starting and forming that collaborative relationship amongst multiple IHEs. Is there anything else you want to share about the type of relationships that you formed with your colleagues at other institutions, and also potentially the value of those relationships moving forward?
I think that's a really good question and a good point, because I think I knew of most of these folks, or a lot of them anyway, just sort of name recognition, and but to sit in a Zoom room with them and these folks and talk about goals and sort of where they are, and you just get to know people. And I think I'm going to walk away definitely a better person and more well-connected across colleagues across the state. So at the first meeting, and everybody's very task focused, and here we go, and we're talking. But then by second, third, or fourth meeting, with the first 10 minutes are just kind of debriefing on how everybody is and what's going on with them. And then by the last meeting, we're talking about other things, that where you going on vacation and all that. So you sort of get to know people a little bit. I just thought that was so valuable to get to know folks. So I think that was pretty important. I also think that I can't stress enough just about having the team and kind of putting yourself to the background a little bit. It's almost like having 11 chefs, wanting to make their chili because their chili or whatever is the best. And they think that, and just, letting other people do their thing and you fulfilling your role, and just being a good teammate. I think that's really some important things that came out of this.
That's great. And really, would you do this moving forward? Would you sign on to do another collaborative effort like this again?
Absolutely. Again, you folks, Amira kept everything moving forward and online and on task in just such a great way. And I absolutely, I think it's about impact, and it's about helping kids with disabilities, helping teachers. And yeah, I would definitely do that. It's sort of why we do what we do.
Yeah. And so as we're kind of starting to move into our wrap-up questions, I really was wondering from both of you, we've shared some of the benefits and, some of the challenges. Is there anything else that you would like to mention about, what are some of the maybe stumbling blocks that other IHEs might run into in doing this work, or also really benefits? If there's anything you'd like to mention here, Amira or David, that would be great.
I would just say keep the lines of communication open. And if folks are unclear of anything, just make sure that the expectations are very clear. And, going over them again if the folks kind of lose focus, and just making sure that we remain respectful in that communication, but just consistently communicating and following up when necessary. I think that IHEs understanding how important they are, and PaTTAN for me serves as that sort of intermediate between research and practice. And so what's the best way to get these ideas and thoughts to practitioners? And so making sure that that's really the focus of the work, so that at the end of the day, we're impacting students. And I think that that really was just that kind of thing going on in the background to make sure that we stayed on target with our project.
Amira, you bring up a huge point there. And I think, as folks in IHEs, folks are conducting research, what better way to have our research make an impact than to roll out programs like this? I mean, it to me, it makes little sense to do research and you write it up in a scientific journal and that's all wonderful. But if it doesn't get out to the folks who really need it in the field and it doesn't change the field in some positive way, then your work is really for naught. So, I think, some of the things that we've touched on here with just benefits and challenges, I think one benefit is just the inclusiveness across the IHEs and Department of Ed. And I think, looking at each other as equal partners and things, I think we, Amira, you established that from the beginning, that we're all in this together. And I think that's so important that, as I said earlier, we have different ways of going about things, and our day jobs can be quite different from each other, but understanding that we all have something to give, we all have something to help with here. I think it's just so important, and taking the time to listen to perspectives. And, from Amira's perspective, this is what she sees and why she sees things. My perspective is different. And here's why I see things a certain way. And then having a good, respectful conversation and figuring out what the best way to go is, and always picking the best way and not putting everything else aside. It's all about kids and teachers.
Yeah, really keeping that at the forefront seems to be key. It's keeping the impact and creating an environment where people feel that they can trust one another and work collaboratively, and that there's respect within that environment seems to be really key. And as we hear from a lot of our other SPDIGs across the country, they have really indicated that this work is hard. They sometimes really struggle with bringing IHEs together. And I know that we've kind of highlighted some of the key ingredients for how we've made this work happen here in Pennsylvania. Is there anything else you'd want to share, just as, people are trying to get individuals to the table to have conversations, that you think would be important for IHEs to hear or to feel when they're coming to the table to do this type of work, just to start seeding it?
Yeah, I mean, I think just some of the things we've talked about and just having conversations. And I think maybe the broader lesson that I've gotten out of this, and maybe others will too, is really not waiting for the formal grant opportunity, the formal program to have the conversation, right? So to keep the lines of communication, or to find ways to establish lines of communication all along. And if you look at departments of education and IHEs, they're part of our infrastructure, and to make that the most sort of to maximize the efficiencies is super important. And having conversations while we're not having projects is as important, so that when the projects come up, then we are really well versed at working with each other.
Wonderful. Well, I just want to thank both of you so much for your time today and for sharing your thoughts. The work that you have done is just really an exemplar for our state, but for other states too, to see how this can work and the impact that it ultimately has on students, teachers, and families. It's amazing. So thank you. And I just appreciate both of you so much. And thank you.